They Might Be Giants' Flood hit the airwaves in 1990, and that's a date I didn't have to look up because I remember it well. I was just a kid in high school, and I had my alarm set, and it was one of those old school alarms that used the radio to wake you up instead of a buzzer. This strange song came on, and it sounded something like this. Okay, can you picture me, 16 years old, laying in bed, this song comes on, and this man with a strange sounding voice says that he's a little glowing friend, and he's not actually my friend, and anyway, I was tired, I was delirious, I had no idea what that meant, but the radio station that I used to listen to, for those of you that grew up in Utah, you'll know this radio station well, it's called KJQ, and it was an alternative radio station, and they played a lot of They Might Be Giants.
Don't let's start. I've got to work hard and I don't get around. How you get around?
They actually played They Might Be Giants before this hit, but this was the first They Might Be Giants song that really stuck and really made me remember them. And so picture me, I'm laying here, I'm a little glowing friend, and I'm not really even actually your friend. And what does it mean? Well, let me play the intro and we'll go through this together. One of the things I want to point out about this song is it does a little trick. It lowers the volume for the introduction so that you have to turn up your stereo. I think there's some other songs that do this, but they do that on purpose. So you turn up the stereo, and then when you hear the actual song come in, it's thumping your stereo and you're enjoying it in its full glory. This song also starts off with the bridge. A lot of songs will start off with the chorus. Traditionally, most songs start off with the verses. So this song doesn't start out with the chorus exactly. It starts off with this little part of the bridge, which you'll see as we get into the song, and then it gets into the chorus. As he talks about little glowing friends, I wanted to introduce you to a little glowing friend that I purchased here. This is a Blue Canary nightlight. So as you can see, it plugs in, and it's got one of these photoelectric switches. So if I put my finger over it, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it illuminates, and the lighting isn't the best for this, but this is available on theymightbegiants.com, and they're not giving me any commission to do this, but this is my little glowing friend that I purchased, and it's really what John was talking about. Put it simply, this song, I believe, has two meanings. First, the literal meaning. It's a song about a nightlight, and it's the only song that I know of its kind that's from the perspective of a nightlight serenading us, the listener. So that's a very interesting concept to write a song. But I believe it has a second meaning, and that's an emotional confession by the songwriter, John Linnell. So if you want to hear what I think is the emotional confession that John makes, you're going to have to stick around to the end of the video. So let's go ahead and listen to the song together. Now that we know that the song's about a nightlight, I think you'll find these lyrics really fun.
Blue canary in the alley by the light switch, who watches over you? Make a little birdhouse in your soul, not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
Okay, so I know a lot of people have been confused by this song because we're hearing about a birdhouse that's going in your soul. But now that you hear that the context is about a little nightlight that's maybe in the shape of a blue canary, just like this one that I showed you earlier. Now that we have that context, we can understand this little nightlight saying, "Can you make me a little birdhouse? Can you put a part in your soul for me? Can you have a place in your heart for me?" Let's keep going. And here's verse 1.
I have a secret to tell from my electrical well. It's a simple message, and I'm leaving out the whistles and bells. So the room must listen to me, filibuster vigilantly. My name is Blue Canary, one note spelled L-I-T-E. My story's infinite, like the Longines Symphony. It doesn't rest.
Okay, so here's this little nightlight. He's singing us a song, and he says, "I have a simple message to tell." So, what's the simple message of a nightlight? Well, it's just that it's light. The nightlight illuminates the room just enough that we can sleep, but if we happen to open our eyes, we can recognize where we are, we don't stub our toes. And so, one simple message, L-I-T-E. The first verse also mentions this Longus Symphony. Apparently, that was a radio program that played on the East Coast that John Linnell was familiar with, that was very reliable. It played for many, many years. It was one of the longest broadcasts in American history. And so, like the Longus Symphony, he's infinite. So this song that he puts out is an infinite song. And I also think it's funny, this song has the lyrics that he filibusters vigilantly. So you think about a senator or someone in the House, they're going to filibuster, meaning they're going to waste time on the Senate floor, and they're going to do that vigilantly. So is this nightlight. He's going to send out his single message vigilantly of light. Let's keep going.
Blue canary in the outlet by the light switch, who watches over you? Make a little birdhouse in your soul, not to put too fine a pine on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
So John's really sweet here. This birdhouse, this little canary that's singing out to us, this little nightlight. He's saying, "Can you put a little birdhouse in your soul for me? Can you put me into your heart?" And that's really sweet. Let's go now to the bridge. Okay, so did I mention I love this song? I mean, this song is so good, but listen to these lyrics. I'm your only friend, I'm not your only friend, but I'm a little glowing friend, but really I'm not actually your friend. So how can all of this be true? Well, let's break it down. I'm your only friend. Well, that's true. If you're in a dark house late at night, you're sleeping alone in a bed, that little nightlight is, for all intents and purposes, your only friend in the room. But then he says, well, okay, I'm not actually your friend. So he understands that he's an inanimate object. This is an example of anthropomorphizing an object. Disney does this all the time, where you bring a mop or a broom or an animal or something that isn't human, and you give it human-like attributes. So John Linnell is anthropomorphizing this nightlight, and this nightlight singing out to us, and he's saying, I'm your only friend. Well, I'm not your only friend. So the nightlight admits that you've probably got other friends besides this little nightlight outside of the room. But as far as the room goes, he's your only friend. And then he says, but really, I'm not actually your friend. Again, he's admitting, I'm just an object. I'm just an electrical device that's putting out light. But then he also says, but I am. So John keeps going in and out of metaphor on this. And I also just think it's a really funny and refreshing lyric to go out of metaphor, but then to come in and kind of admit, hey, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I want you to love me anyway. And so that's what I think is happening in that first of that song. It took me years to figure this out. I hope that you already knew what it meant, but if you don't, I hope you enjoy this interpretation. Let's now go on to verse 2.
There's a picture opposite me of my primitive ancestry, which stood on rocky shores and kept the beaches shipwreck free. Though I respect that a lot, I'd be fired if that were my job. After killing Jason off and countless screaming Argonauts, new bird of friendliness, like guardian angels, it's always near.
Okay, this is an action-packed verse here, this second verse. He's talking about, I think this is really cute, his primitive ancestry. So if you were to think about this nightlight, he thinks a lot of himself, obviously. He thinks he's your best friend. He thinks he's your only friend. Well, he's just a little glowing friend. But then this nightlight's saying that I have a primitive ancestry, and he's much more high-tech. He's more high-tech than this primitive ancestor. Well, what's the primitive ancestor? Well, a lighthouse. And you think about a lighthouse is like a nightlight for the ocean, for the ships to come in and find their way and not be washed ashore or have their hulls destroyed by rocks. And a lighthouse isn't exactly a primitive instrument. It has to be built, it's tall, has to be manned, it has to have flares or fire, something that gives it its light. And so you're kind of getting to know the personality of this nightlight. But then he also talks about that job would be a lot of pressure to be a lighthouse. And he references Jason and the Argonauts. He references this idea that I believe in that tale, a bunch of people are shipwrecked and it's a massive tragedy. And so let's keep going on. There's more to this, but I want you guys to discover some of it for yourselves.
In the alley by the light switch, who watches over you? Make a little birdhouse in your soul, not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. While you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul.
I wanted to stop here. That's a really sweet addition to the chorus. You don't hear this except for the final chorus. He says, make a little birdhouse in your soul. I'm your nightlight. I'm your best friend. Can I have a place in your heart? Can I have a place in your soul? But then he also says, and by the way, if you're going to make a birdhouse for me, can you include in that birdhouse a little tiny nightlight? And so I think what the little nightlight is telling us, what this little blue canary is telling us, is that for him is his love language. Providing light for someone while they're scared at night, that's his love language. And so if you're going to love this canary back, would you also put a little nightlight in that birdhouse? And so we have a nightlight being comforted by a nightlight. I mean, only John Linnell can come up with this stuff. Let's keep going.
Not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. While you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul. Not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. While you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul. Not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
And there it is, the only song you'll hear sung from the perspective of a nightlight, serenading you and saying, can't I be the only bee in your bonnet? Can't I be your only love? And so that's just a really funny take. It's uplifting. I think it's a wonderful song. As I thought about the mindset that John Linnell was in, I came up with my second theory for the meaning of this song. You think about the They Might Be Giants. They had two somewhat successful albums. They hadn't made it yet to gold status. They had the Pink album, we call it, which is their original They Might Be Giants album. And then they had an album called Lincoln, which I love both those albums. However, I didn't pony up for those until I was hooked on Flood. And so it's 1989. Think about that. They finally sign with a major record label, Elektra, and John's under some kind of pressure, and he really wants this to be a commercial success. Things are coming together. The band is building momentum, and this is what's on his mind as he's picturing this little nightlight. He's anthropomorphizing this little nightlight, saying, how would it feel to be a nightlight? How would it feel to want to be loved? Now, he could have made this nightlight any character, but I think when you're humanizing an inanimate object like that, you probably put yourself into it. And in fact, in the song, he says, I'm your only friend. He's not saying that the nightlight's your only friend. He's putting himself in this place of this nightlife. I have a couple of quotes that support my theory that John put himself into the nightlight that I'd like to share with you. This comes from an article from the American Songwriter. John Linnell remembers of the run-up to Flood. Quote, there was this feeling of, we don't know what's going to happen. We had organized our ideas in a way that was more coherent, something that would click with a lot more people, and that we had this enormous corporate entity pushing us. Those two things together meant that everything was a bigger deal. We were just being who we were, Linnell says of the band's approach. We knew we couldn't be U2. That was not going to work. Nobody would have been fooled. And also, we wouldn't have liked ourselves if we're trying to be sounding more like stuff that was on the radio. To some extent, we were trying to do something commercial. We wanted people to like it. But we were never fully gifted at knowing what the contemporary sound was, or just fully committing to it in a way that didn't seem phony. We realized that to some extent, we had to do our own thing and hoped that people liked it. We knew that if we were successful at something that wasn't us or seemed borrowed, we would have been miserable. And so I believe the deeper meaning to this song is the little bird, the little canary that John's hoping you put into your heart is him. It's his band. It's They Might Be Giants. John is hoping that you'll build a little birdhouse in your soul for him, his music, and They Might Be Giants. For me, I did build that birdhouse, and They Might Be Giants has been one of my favorite bands since. Flood, as it turns out, went gold. It sold over 1 million copies, and it's still enjoyed today. So let me know what you think about my theory. Do you think the little bird is John, or do you think it was just strictly about a nightlight? Please comment below. This has been the Lord of Lyrics, home of the channel where lyrics reign supreme.
I'm your only friend, I'm not your only friend, but I'm a little glowing friend, but really I'm not actually your friend, but I